Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Urban Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children 18 plus, you are tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with me, Dustin Owen, and my very special guest. By way of Orlando, Florida, they operate one of the best independent insurance brokerages in the state. I have Rod Erb, I have Taylor Young, a.k.a. T.Y., and his big bro, the man with the plan, Brett Young. Gentlemen, welcome to the Be Extraordinary podcast.
Wow. Unexpected.
Damn, that's amazing.
Where's the teleprompter?
Let's get right into it.
You must have done this before.
Once or twice, maybe.
You did this once a bunch of times.
Man, we gotta, no kidding, dude. Well, as you can tell and as you can hear from listening to this absolute savage, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dustin Owen back on the show. And man, first of all, it's good to see you.
It's great to see you guys.
Second of
it
all,
really is.
Man, like the energy that you bring as soon as you walk in the door is infectious, man. So
or annoying. It
I
depends
love
on
it.
who you're talking to.
I love it. And
we're
going to give that today to the listener. Man, we've got a special topic for you guys today. The current real estate market. What is going on? Is it up? Is it down? Is it sideways? What's happening? What are the implications and the impact that it's having all across the country and here in Florida? Dustin has been in the business for over 20 years, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of originations. He's got the #1 podcast for LOs in the entire country, surpassed 1 million downloads years ago at this point. And there is nobody better to have a conversation about what we're going to have a talk today on. So, man, dude, I wanted to just open up and get right into it. Over the last 20 years of you being in this amazing, crazy industry, man, how would you describe this market that we're in today?
Okay, well, if I'm a home buyer or I'm a home seller, awesome. Right? Absolutely awesome. Maybe more for the sellers than I would for the buyers. The buyers are facing affordability issues. The buyers are facing affordability issues because interest rates shot up from 3.5 to 7.5. They touched 8. They're now sliding back down below 7. But I say awesome for a home buyer because if you're a home buyer for the first time in a long time, and potentially the first time in a long time to come, they're sitting in the driver's seat. And it's a very short window where the sellers who have to sell, their homes are finally sitting, which means those sellers are going to have to negotiate, which means you can go in as a buyer and you can maybe potentially negotiate money off the sales price, negotiate that the seller potentially pays all your closing costs, which could save you $10,000 to $15,000. You could ask that seller to help you lower your interest rate. We talked about interest rates going from 3.5 to 8. Now they're back down closer to 7, touching the 6s. But what if you could negotiate with your seller to give you money that you could then give to your lender to help you artificially lower your interest rate for a couple years or lower it for the lifetime? So if you're a buyer, although it's difficult having limited inventory, for the first time in 6, 7, 8 years, you're sitting in the driver's seat. And I can promise you this, the minute rates do come down to somewhere in the 5s, you're no longer going to be in the driver's seat, so it's going to be a seller's market. So I think if you're a buyer or a seller, honestly, it's a pretty decent market.
Cool.
I think if you're a real estate professional or a mortgage professional, give me 2008 all over again.
You gave me a cool analogy before we went live about we're going to run a half marathon. Share that thought.
Yeah, so this is what it's like for those of us that work in the industry, and you have to have some perspective. And for me, my perspective dates back to living through and surviving that 07, 08, 09 time
You
frame.
said give me that.
Give me that. Yeah, I would.
We're going to unpack that.
Comparing those two, 08 was pretty, look, it came out of left field. It knocked us out. I was too young and naive to really know what was going on, and that was probably a good thing for me at the time. But once you got knocked out, those of us that were left, we were left to pick up the pieces, which meant we got to build. And building, for the most part, is fun. Building is positive, and building is, from a camaraderie standpoint, it's kind of like Three Musketeers, all for one for all. Mm-hmm. The past 3 years, 22, 23, and 24, was the exact opposite of getting knocked out, right? It was more of like kidney punches, leg kicks, and throw in a couple paper cuts with, someone laughing along the way and rubbing salt or pouring vinegar into that paper cut. Or Rod, to use the analogy I was telling you about what it's been like the past 3 years, is we all knew coming out of 2022, hey, look, 2021, 2020 and 2021 were abnormal. Right? I don't think many people would want those years back, although we made a shit ton of money. By the way, it's metric. That's a real term. I'm not cussing.
Yeah.
But you can look it up.
It's science.
Wikipedia.
It's science.
Yep. It's science. But, we made a crap ton of money. I don't think we would want to go live in that world either again. But we knew coming off of it that, look, rates were going to go up. That was going to put a strain on home sales. It was going to make refinances evaporate. Like, we knew there was going to be some pain to be felt, and we were actually welcoming it. So nonetheless, the analogy is, so someone told me at the end of 2021, the beginning of 22, hey, you're getting ready to go on a long distance run. It's only a half marathon, though you're good. Meaning, hey, the next year, the year and a half, things are going to be slow. You're not going to make that much money. There's not going to be that many leads, but look at all the money you made the past 2 years, no big deal. And we all signed up for that. And then we were buying into some economic data that told us, like, look, by May 10th of 2023, things are going to be better. Cool. Now we're putting a finish line. The finish line was May 10th, 2023. Then May 10th of 2023 happens, and nothing positive happened. By June and July, rates skyrocket even further. Oh, shikes. So now, I told you we're going to run that 13.1 mile race. You know what? Let's go and make it a marathon. You're good for it. You're strong, right? You're healthy. Let's go and do 26.2 miles. So for the most part, many of us in the industry, we just went ahead and said, hey, let's double the distance. Others got out. Like, you saw mortgage companies fold. You saw lenders not renew their license. Right. Real estate agents were doing the same exact thing. And here we are. We finish 23. We get to the beginning of 24, and we're all like, all right, we're going to finish this race. We're going to get through Q1 of 2024. Q1s and Q4 in real estate are always the slowest. Mm-hmm. So if you want to sell your house, June, July, August, or May, June, July, August. That's where you get the most money. If you want to buy a house, you actually want to buy your house October, November, January. That's when you can find sellers that are more willing to negotiate. That's just a standard practice overall. So nonetheless, we all think, okay, we're going to survive Q1 of 2024 because Q1s every year are slow years. But by the spring and summer months, we're going to see that normal buildup of inventory, that normal buildup of transactions. Well, it didn't come. So now all of a sudden we thought we were on mile 25 of what was now a marathon, not a half marathon. Now someone just slid in and said, hey guys, by the way, have you ever heard of ultra running? Because this is now an ultra race. And we're all thinking, okay, ultra. I knew something about ultra running. Is it a 30 miler or is it a 50 miler? And their answer is, I don't know. We'll tell you when you're done.
Wow.
That's what it's been like the past 3 years.
Jeez.
So in hindsight, I would have probably preferred the sucker punch getting knocked out. However, here's one thing I can tell you. For those of us that have good books of business, for those of us that have sustainable business models, honestly, when 08, 09 came through, or 07, 08, 09, like, we also were decimated financially. As much as I want to complain and cry poor, no, I still am able to make a good living. Right. It's just nowhere near what it was like in years like 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm not asking for 2022, 2021.
Right.
But, so the industry, most of us shouldn't be crying poor, but it's definitely been a painful, slow, methodical, the target keeps moving if you're a mortgage lender or if you're a realtor. And
that just comes down to this effect. There's just not as much volume. There's just not as many transactions.
There's no
available,
homes for sale.
Right?
Yeah, it's called the lock-in effect. Sellers are locked into their homes.
Got it.
So sellers are locked in, and statistically, and this is statistical probability, they won't sell, they meaning sellers, until rates come down into the fives. We're looking for a 5 handle, 5.75, 5.875. I just saw a really cool study by the FHFA. FHFA is the parent for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We won't get into that whole regulatory body situation, but it was essentially this. For every 1% rates come down, it makes homeowners 18% more likely to sell. So when rates were at 8%, just think, ain't nobody wanting to sell. Because they have to move somewhere else. Why are they going to exchange their 3.5 or their 4% rate for an 8% rate? Mm-hmm. The minute rates come down to 7, well, it makes sellers 18% more likely to sell. When they go from 7 to 6, they're now 36% more likely to sell. We get into the 5s, all of a sudden sellers are 50% more willing to sell. What we need is we need more homes on the market because we need more inventory. Yep. Like your generation, TY, the millennial generation, like they want to buy houses. Sure. But there's not enough inventory. The Gen Z right behind them, they want to buy houses. There's not enough inventory. And then if they do find inventory, they're dealing with a 7% interest rate and homeowners insurance, which you all know a thing or two about, going up threefold, right? So insurance going up from $150 a month to $400 a month, that $250 Like that's 50 grand in sales price.
Yeah, it's just
you know,
killing
And home
affordability.
values are going up, so property taxes.
yeah, property taxes are going up, home values are going up. And look, home values going up long term are good.
Sure.
Home values are going up because what we learned in fourth grade, simple supply and demand. Well, when you have limited supply, but you still have a demand for the product, there's no reason for that price to come down. Now, I think there's markets where you're going to see a correction. They've seen it in Austin. They've seen it in Boise. My wife and I have been looking at property over at St. Pete Beach, right? That's a second home luxury community. I'm going to tell you something. Every time I get my MLS listing, it's price decrease, price decrease, price decrease. That's a little bit different than when someone's trying to buy their first home or the home they're going to raise their children in. Those homes, for the most part, are selling for what the market dictates, like what fair market value is. Here's another analogy y'all will love. What homes aren't selling for is Uber surge. You know, like when we go to Uber, you have to sometimes pay surge pricing. Well, just a year or two ago, we were having to pay Uber surge pricing.
Right.
No, now we're just paying Uber regular pricing for our homes.
You got that XL.
Well said.
At that XL, that is great. That's very well said.
I'm curious because you paint that picture as a loan officer, and it's a knife fight. It's just an absolute every single day. It just seems like you're moving the ball. Is there anybody winning in this market? And if so, how would you define winning given the state of affairs that you just shared? You can't compare it to 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. But what does winning in this market look like? And who are those players and what are they doing? Maybe not who are those players, but what are those type of players doing?
Well, I love that question because I know you three gentlemen, personally and professionally, I know all three of you buy into this thought process and this concept, but it's head down, blinders on, and grind, baby. The people who are not distracted by the outside environment that they cannot control and are focused on what they can control, they are winning. And what they don't understand is they are picking up market share beyond belief. They're laying that foundation. They're planting those seeds. So the minute we start to see, and this is what it's going to take, we're already seeing all the inflation data come in better than expected, which means inflation is stalling, is starting to flatline. We saw today that retail sales came in worse than anticipated. Well, when people aren't spending money, it doesn't drive up the cost of goods, which means it's deflationary. That's what we're looking for. But more importantly, we're looking for a weak labor market. Yeah. So the people right now that aren't distracted by whether or not rates are 7 or 8, that aren't distracted whether or not there's 1,000 homes on the market or 10,000 homes on the market, but they have their head down, their blinders on, they're hosting their lunch and learns, they're making their sales calls, they're online networking. Those are the people that when things turn, their peers are going to be like, oh my God, that person's so lucky. Look at them.
Right.
I'm like, no, not so lucky.
Yeah.
They are grinding. So there's plenty of people in this industry. Like I have a friend of mine. I mean, Kayla last month, she funded 10 units for almost $4 million. I don't know her comp plan, but I'm guessing she made about $40,000 in commission. Like there are still people winning, but the people who are winning, and this is what I found, 2 types of people in my industry, the mortgage industry that are winning. The 1%ers, because look, top producers are top producers for a reason. Right. They only know one way to operate regardless of market conditions.
Wide open.
Yep. So like they might not be doing 100 million this year. They're doing 60 million, but they're still a 1%er.
Yeah.
And we have the people who've been in the industry for 3 years or less. Those are the people who are still building. Those are the people who don't know any other market, so they don't know any better. And this is what they were given. And come hell or high water, they're going to do what is expected of them. The people who are floundering, they're kind of stuck in purgatory. They are the seasoned professional who isn't a top producer, and they're just sitting back and waiting for the market to come to them. And those are the people that they don't necessarily have enough staying power. They don't have enough endurance. They couldn't go from half marathon to marathon, or maybe they made it to marathon, but now that it's an ultra, they're going to bow out.
Yeah.
What about this NAR? What about this new NAR ruling? Is this impacting the loan officers, the LOs, just as much as it is the real estate agents?
So the NAR commission settlement lawsuit is the biggest opportunity I believe the mortgage industry has seen in decades.
Wow.
It's our first time to step up to the plate, be a true partner to the real estate agents because they're going to need us. No one knows what's going to transpire, right? It could be a big fat nothing burger. It could totally revolutionize the way that real estate is transacted. My guess is somewhere in the middle, but it's a loan officer's opportunity to pick up the phone and sit down with a professional real estate agent to talk about how we are going to win together. It's also a great opportunity for the mortgage loan originator for the first time to actually get in front of the consumer first. See, the problem with when you're in the mortgage industry, like think about what mortgages are. We have the one product that nobody wants. We all dream about not having a mortgage. Nobody wakes up saying, I'd love to go in debt for 30 years today. No, they wake up saying, oh, I would love to own a home. I'd love to have a piece of the American dream. I would love to build equity or wealth through real estate. So they contact a realtor or a builder, or they go online looking at homes. A mortgage is nothing more than a financial instrument that helps them purchase real estate that then helps them create generational wealth. But this NAR Commission settlement lawsuit, very well, if positioned correctly, plus the advent of technology and video content creation and podcasting and YouTube channels and social media and reels and all the stuff that we all buy into as professionals, is going to make it easier for loan originators to be their local community expert, to be the source of information. So I think it's also an opportunity, not that that loan officers want to cut out real estate agents, but how great would it be if consumers started going to the LO first, and the LO was able to say, let me recommend you to a real estate professional that I think would work perfect with you.
Interesting.
Wow.
So I think for me, that's where I'm seeing this NAR Commission settlement lawsuit potentially taking the industry as a whole.
Got it. Interesting.
Wow.
Fascinating. That's a cool concept. I mean, it's a little bit of a paradigm shift. You know?
Yes. And I think every time in life, I mean, I know we were told as kids, oh, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I'm thinking, well, when life gives me lemonades, I make spiked lemonade, because we're going to have some fun while we're also making the best out of a situation. But I think within anything, there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
An opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to say, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
But there's also an opportunity, I think, for advancement if you turn on that reticular activator and look for it.
I love that.
Man, oh man.
So how long has it been, if you were to say months-wise? You say that marathon, then the marathon.
Since I got a check. How long, Dustin, has it been since you took home a paycheck?
When you
into your
decided
world.
to start on the half marathon to today, which is now the ultra marathon, how long would you say that cycle has been? And then my second follow-up question is, what the hell is going to happen next? Like, if you had the crystal ball, Dustin Owen's crystal ball, it's all or nothing on the mobile betting app. What is going to happen?
First of all, look, you've already had on Zulu and Juan, right? So you've had on Laura Zulago and Juan Jimenez, who are two friends of mine. I just had lunch with them on Friday. And their story is way better than mine. And Laura's a freaking beast. And Juan's no schlep himself. So I don't know why we're talking about my endurance training when you've already had them on the show. But I will be a polite guest.
There you go.
Actually, today I'm a co-host, right? I'm a co-host.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I'm a co-host. I'll be a polite guest and I'll answer your question. When I started, I was the kid who, when coach said go run poles, for any baseball players out there, you run foul pole to foul pole. It's our conditioning after practice. I was taking about 17 minutes to put away my catching equipment. Like, I was a catcher, I had to put away my gear. But as I was watching my teammates run poles, I was as slowly as I could taking off my equipment because I was like allergic to running. But I signed up for this self-discipline mental health challenge called 75 Hard back in 2019. So if I go way back to 2019, it all started with I had to do one 45-minute workout a day outside, and then one 45-minute a day inside. Or I could do both outside, but one had to be outside. And I just started saying, well, I'm going to try to run, but I couldn't really run. So I jogged a minute, I walked a minute, jogged a minute, walked a minute. And I did that for 35, 40 minutes.
wow.
Then I would just jump in the pool and do like old lady exercises to get my 45 minutes of outdoor exercise in. And then after like a couple weeks, I was like, oh, I'm jogging 3 minutes and walking a minute. And I'm like, but I can't really jog every day. This is getting boring and my knees and hips are hurting. So I had this old Huffy in my garage. Let me get on that. I live on the Cross Seminole Trail, and I'll go ride my bike for 45 minutes. Then the old Huffy broke down. I was like, well, shit, let me go find like one of these real bikes. So I saw a buddy of mine on Facebook was selling a old, I think they're called Jameis. It was a road bike. And I bought the road bike. And for the first time I had those clip-in shoes, which freaked me out. And I was running and biking. I'm like, well, if you're running and biking, you might as well try to learn how to swim. And growing up in Florida, like, I know how to swim, but I can't swim laps. So I go to YouTube University, right? Because YouTube's a great place to learn things. Like, shout out to my YouTube channel, the Loan Officer Podcast, or TLOP. Go to that YouTube and learn some shit, I guess. But I learned how to swim, and I started going to LA Fitness. And at first it was one length, not a lap. A lap's there and back, a length. One length, 25 yards freestyle. And then I couldn't muster back the energy to do another freestyle, but I could breaststroke back. Because breaststroke, your head's almost out of water the whole time. And then eventually I stuck with it to where probably within, 6, 7, 8 weeks, I was running 9 minutes, walking a minute. And I was able to do at least a 500-yard, pool exercise. And I was biking up to like 13 miles. So that's how it all just kind of started. And it's like anything in life. My favorite book is James Clear's Atomic Habits. I got 1% better per day. It sounds cliche and corny, but I really did. Nowadays, it's crazy to think my Wednesday workout, which is going to be, well, this is Tuesday that we're recording this, so tomorrow, it very well is going to be an 8-mile track workout, and I'm going to do it with friends, and I'm not going to feel like I ran 8 miles. So was that your question? Oh, then
by the
what's next? What's next is I'm running the Wilmington 70.3 in October. So that's a half Ironman, 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, and then a 13-mile run at the end. I'm going to do that in Wilmington. I do some stuff with Special Olympics, so I'll probably race with some of my athletes at Special Olympics where I'm a paired guide. So they'll do some sprints, maybe do some Olympics. Olympic distance, just a smaller distance. Sprints even smaller than or shorter than an Olympic. And in 2026, I told Juan and I told Laura at lunch, so I'm telling you guys, I'm putting out in the universe, I will do one full Ironman. Right, that's the half times 2. Woo! I'm gonna do it in 2026.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. I won't be doing it with you, I don't think, but I am inspired by it.
Right.
Well, I want to take it home to the fact that it's funny that you just mentioned where you started in 2019 versus what you're doing now, and then your goal to 2026. Because I just think about a loan officer in this market. Like, you may be in that season where you can't run 45 minutes straight, you can't jog 45 minutes straight, and you have to figure out to walk a minute, run a minute, and get to the point where you can get to that next step. And then you find yourself in this market that you don't know what's going to end. But what comes next for the real estate market? If we're comparing it to the endurance and where we sit in the analogy and the metaphor that you made, what's your crystal ball on what comes next there at the end of the marathon?
Well, so I'm going to answer that for you, but it's interesting something you said about you only have 45 minutes and you won't be able to like run the whole time, but it doesn't mean you stop, right? You walk,
there you go.
You crawl, you walk backwards, you skip, whatever you want to do. What's really cool to add on to that is the first time I ran 9.3 miles as the Gasparilla 15K. The first time I ever ran that much without stopping to walk. I did so because I did so with my best friend, which meant I found a mentor, I found a coach, I found a community to do it with. And I think so many times if you're going to do extraordinary things, because we're talking about be extraordinary, you first, I think, start by joining or being a part of a community. Amen. And it was because of him that he gave me the encouragement that, look, I'm not going to stop. You don't have to stop. So I wanted to add that in there because I think it parlays into what you all do, but also the concept of not giving up. I think it's not giving up, but it's also surrounding yourself with people that are going to be your biggest advocates, your cheerleaders, or people you can look up to. What's next for real estate? I mean, look, at the end of the day, here's what's going to happen. We're in an election year. Nothing happens during an election. Like election years means there's very, very little limited policy that's ever going to be passed and very little rocking of the boat. It's funny how that works, regardless of who's in office, right? Red, blue, purple, green, doesn't matter. That's what happens during an election. So I think once we get past the election, we're all of a sudden going to be like, oh, inflation's not an issue. Oh my gosh, unemployment is 4.3%, not 3.9 or not 4. Oh my gosh, employers are not hiring to the extent that they were hiring, and people aren't getting raises the way people are getting raises, and credit card debt's maxed out, and consumers aren't spending money. We're going to see the Federal Reserve start acting. They're going to start cutting the Fed funds rate, which is really setting monetary policy. The Fed funds rate does not dictate mortgage rates, but the Fed funds rate sets monetary policy, at which point everything else is a chain reaction off of that. We'll see mortgage rates start to come down. Now, I'm not making a prediction if it's going to be 6.5% or 5.5%, but they're going to start coming down. And as we learned, as rates drop, more sellers will be willing to sell. As more sellers are willing to sell, there's more inventory for the buyers who are desperately wanting to buy. And a mortgage at 6.5% versus a mortgage at 7.5% is roughly, depending on your loan size, let's call it $300 a month, which makes homeownership more affordable. So I think long term, and things are cyclical in real estate, long term, we're getting ready to go on a very nice bull run that starts in 2025 and could run all the way through 2030.
Well, and to couple that, homeowners insurance companies for the first time in years are filing for rate decreases.
What?
Yes. Certain ones, you're starting to see the trend that when you fast forward 12 months from now, you will, for the first time, we've never been able to look a consumer in the eye and say that your rate's going to go down. But that's starting to happen for certain groups of policies, certain construction types. So I expect that trend to continue.
Is that because there's more competition coming into the market, or just because of?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There was,
Okay.
you know, it was litigation reform and legislation reform a year and a half ago, whatever it was. And so that's starting to bring new players into the market. Companies are starting to return to profitability, and they're able to pass that on. So.
How often do you get linked with or associated with the comedian Matt Rife? Do you ever get that?
I know who that is. That's funny.
Yeah,
That's funny.
You should probably dress up for Halloween
Like a black leather jacket
Yeah,
with
as Matt Rife, and then have Pinky go as like another comedian, and you could be like, you know, some kind of a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
That's a bit. Halloween in June.
What's that?
Halloween
No,
in
we're
June?
gonna wait till October. Yeah, we'll wait till October. I'll be done with my race too, so I'll come in like as like a former.
You'll help us celebrate.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, man, Dustin, thanks, dude. I tell you what, you're always a plethora of information, always just a pleasure to be around, man. Your energy, and you mentioned, you know, a mastermind. You mentioned a group of people. You mentioned a mentorship. You mentioned a community. And I just wanted to give you a plug with the Loan Officer Podcast. I mean, I don't know if there is a better community if you're a loan originator in the space of getting around people that are doing the thing. And from a plethora of training videos to events to community chats to resources to Q&A, you just have created such an incredible ecosystem with what you're doing. I just can't encourage anybody enough that, I mean, in this market, in this business, when things get compressed and things get tight, you know, you want to talk to and be around people that have done it before. And you have gathered an incredible amount of minds with what you're doing. So I wanted to just give a quick moment to give a plug on if where someone can find
Shameless
that.
plug. So first and foremost, the website that would direct you anywhere is tloponline.com. TLOP's our brand. I mean, it stands for the Loan Officer Podcast. It's just an acronym. But in the early days, our biggest fans started calling themselves T-Loppers and started referring to us as T-Lop. And I loved that because I never liked the name of the show because the Loan Officer Podcast, it's not for loan officers. Like, legitimately, this is the shit they didn't teach us in school. It just so happens that I'm a former loan officer, so I speak a language that is speaking to that consumer, that homeowner, that home buyer, that real estate agent, that financial advisor, that divorce attorney, that entrepreneur, that sales professional, that college student. And it was very much for me, because I'm a podcast fan, it's Joe Rogan and Dave Ramsey have a baby. And that's what I wanted it to be. And that's probably the best way I would describe myself to somebody who didn't know me. I'm like, look, this is what you're getting. So go to YouTube and check that out. We are T-Lop on YouTube. The problem with that is that there's this guy called Kanye West, and he has this album called The Life of Pablo that they also call T-Lop. So I'm battling Kanye right now for who's going to out T-Lop, and he's kicking my ass.
Yeah.
So we are the Loan Officer Podcast, but we're affectionately known as T-Lop on YouTube. If you're on Spotify or Apple, the Loan Officer Podcast, look us up. My first name is Dustin. My last name is Owen. I love LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me individually on LinkedIn. I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. And then obviously, if you're TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, we are at the Loan Officer Podcast.
Dude, you're the man.
Outstanding.
Tell you what, this guy does not know how to do ordinary. He is allergic to ordinary. Thanks for being extraordinary, man. Thanks for being here. Nice damn shirt. I love
Gentlemen,
it.
thank you so much for the opportunity.
Pleasure.
Hopefully we can do it again soon.
Sounds good. Bye-bye for now.